It has been a cold, dry winter, and just like our skin dries out in the wintertime, so do our plants, especially our broadleaf evergreens. And that's because they have more exposed surface area to our dry winter winds. One of the best things that you can do to protect your plants is to water them. And I know watering seems like the last thing on your mind in the wintertime, but if we haven't received about an inch of moisture in some form, whether it be ice or snow or rain, in the last month, then you definitely want to think about watering your plants. Now, I know you might have your hoses unhooked, but it can be as simple as going and getting a pitcher full out of your kitchen sink or your bathtub. The reason why you want to water your plants is because the wind continues to go across these plants and pulls the moisture out of the leaves and out of the upper part of the plant. Meanwhile, the roots are sitting in soil and they are exposed to cold, dry air in those soil pores. So basically, the plant's drying out from both ends, and in essence, it can freeze dry to death if you don't give it any moisture to rehydrate itself. Oftentimes our evergreen leaves tend to have damage, and you can see here that some of these have a bleached appearance, and that's because they've dried out so much. Now you can see the majority of this plant is still green, so we know it's going to be okay, and typically in the spring it'll put on a new flush of growth and you won't even see this damaged foliage anymore. If you have some shrubs that you're curious whether they're still alive or not because you're not seeing any green leaves, the best way to test that is by scratching the stem. And you can do a scratch test on any shrub really, and that's simply by taking your fingernail and scratching vertically along the stem to look for some green tissue underneath that bark. This is also a great test to do on your deciduous shrubs such as crepe myrtles and beautyberries and beauty bushes that don't have leaves. If you're curious about how they're doing this winter and you're wondering if they're still alive, you can just go and scrape vertically on that stem and look for green tissue. Now, if you don't see any green tissue and you've scratched in a couple of different areas, then that doesn't necessarily mean that that shrub is dead. It just means that the vegetation on the upper part of the plant is likely dead, but the root system may still be alive. Now, a lot of times in Oklahoma especially, we'll have shrubs that we refer to as dying back to the ground, and that means the vegetation above ground has died, but the roots are still viable, and the roots will push up new vegetation in the spring. The only way to really know whether the roots are still viable is to wait till spring and see if we have new vegetation coming up. If you have newly planted plants or very young plants, they tend to be more susceptible to winter damage. That's why, especially with broadleaf evergreens, it is recommended to plant those in the springtime. This allows ample time for it to establish a root system before it goes into the winter, as well as an appropriate time when it's going to get plenty of moisture and you don't have to worry about it drying out from those winds. If you're looking around your landscape right now and you've decided that you don't have enough evergreens or you think you might have lost some this winter, don't fear, because in the next couple of months is the ideal time to plant new evergreens.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.